On tape, where the time we've got left, as usual, we're trying to run over the ones that people here in the studio audience, here in Heidelberg, that were requesting. God damn, they checked them in German. I can't read those kind of checks. Well, I know it's not Prague, I said Heidelberg. But at any rate, we were just discussing how some of the Kyroots people never request, such as one tonight, they got repeated, since nobody requested from last show, about the fact that if there is some sort of struggle going on between the dumb and those who might know something, and that you got any doubt, if we say, all right, if there is such a battle, you go, all right, who's winning? And you have to go, well, save your time. That is an interesting question. It may be to them, but it's not interesting to anyone who knows anything. If you're trying to check with somebody whether you wanted, if you just pulled up to the service station and wondered whether the man was actually qualified to put air in your tires. You said, have you ever considered that the world's made up of people who seem to be fairly intelligent and then the stupid? You know he's going to say, well, yeah, I've noticed that. You say, who do you think's winning? He said, well, I don't know. Maybe you should put it, if you got some nice tires, if you paid more than Kmart prices, you might want to go out and look after them yourself. Here we go. What's German for 13? All right. There's a joke there, but I'm not going to do it. And Kyroots said, where dimensions move from one level to another, they'll usually accept volunteers, but they do not generally advertise. It's nice to always start off by saying, well, that one is so obvious right there in the beginning, there's no need to say anything. But don't you agree? There's only one place that there's anything worthwhile to say, and that would be where dimensions move from one level to another. Everything else is conversation. Everything else is recreational talk. Everything else is verbal hobbies. Everything else is the secondary world at play as it should be. And the whole idea of there being unanswerable questions, I can't figure out what the hell's going on, and why do terrible things happen to poor people, in your own version of that one. And the answer is nowhere you can find. Not at any level. It doesn't matter what level. And then they take the idea of that Kyroots puts his dimensions, and they turn into all sorts of things like spiritual level and blah, blah level. And Kyroots simply pointing out, if you went first class right in your face, would be that the only thing that's worthwhile to be said would be, let's take our case, according to how far you can stretch your ordinary mind, whether you think we're living in 3 dimensions, which is the easiest. That it's where 3 or 4 dimensions move into either 4 or 5. That's the only place that there'll be anything worthwhile. And that's not what Kyroots started out with in this one. He pointed out that it's at that place that they'll accept volunteers, which is not enough to say anything. And then it's ... And then it says, but they don't generally advertise. The inference being, may I suggest on Kyroots' behalf, that there are places that you might see something, but they don't advertise. They do not say, come over here. They do not say, we need you to do this. It's only ordinary people who might work at the solid profession of being in charge of the air pump at a service station, who believe that they are what? On a mission. Kyroots put it pretty nicely tonight, because they already had a version in there about the gods, these 2 not very nice guys getting together wanting to torture creatures. And there was a note in there about this reality that would continue to tell its creatures, which could have been another version, that he wanted to torture them, or it did. And what does it have to do? Writing your autobiography is sort of right to the heart of it, but another version would be, if you wanted to torture the creatures, is to tell them all. You. Tell them individually. If you're a reality, it doesn't take any longer. And if you're a reality, hide out, as always, down at the 100 dual numbers down the duodecimal system, down to your local library, and see people there pulling up books on UFOs and talking to the dead, and just slip up to them and say, you are on a mission. Of course, you people laugh now, but plenty of you and plenty of people that's probably watching this would cut off, at least according to how well they're endowed, certain portions of their private anatomy. Just if they think, If that would only happen. That's what I've been starving myself, overeating myself, taking drugs for all these years, just hoping that the guides, the spirits, the great purple brotherhood, or whatever, would someday come to me and say, yes, my child, my boy, my girl, my whatever you are, that we have finally selected you. You have won your wings, or whatever they say. You are now on a secret, special mission from us. There are people that give anything for that, and here you are laughing at it. And of course, as I point out, though, I say there are people, and you're laughing at it. You used to be some of the people. Of course, some of you look off. This is a Kyroots. Some of you look off and think, yes, and I still would be if I thought there was any chance. Get out, get out. Get on that ferry and go back to Copenhagen, where we were. All right. And Kyroots, well, speaking of that, and Kyroots said, God, we're going to have to figure that this is not only metaphorical, this is not speaking about metaphors metaphorically, that this one. And Kyroots said, off to the side, this one guy had a personal advertisement that read, everyone's a UFO. I'm faking now like maybe something important's coming. He said that next week he's going to expand it to its full completion so that the ad will read, everyone is a UFO, and everyone's afraid to admit it. That one's best left alone. Unless you were going down to the library and hang around that first section. If you do, I hope somebody does come up. Somebody that escaped from the home over the weekend. He comes up to you and says, we've been watching you. We'll be in touch later, but keep up the good work. And you know it worked when you see the guy then goes out in his arms. He's taking, he had to get special permission from the head librarian to check out 40 occult and mystical books at one time. He knows he's on the right track then. Those of you that I used to tell about that guy that I said actually exists, I hope none of you are frightened they used to go around doing that, because he did die, I think. So in case any of you are frightened and afraid that you're going to be there and it might be him, instead of actually when the guy comes up and infers that he is part of the great invisible Tibetan or Afghanan brotherhood. Because some of you were around long enough, I told you about that guy that used, I claimed to exist, that used to hang around libraries just kind of as a hobby and would do that to people. He's dead, so if it happens to you, at least don't blame it on the guy I knew. I started saying my friend. It wasn't my friend. I heard about it, or else made it up. Or else did it. No, made it up. And Kyroots said, more backstage royal chit-chat. A real king doesn't carry around pocket change. Makes you want to stop. There's more. Well, it gets into somebody wondering whether this actually has to do something with thinking as opposed to the monetary habits of royalty. If we're going to have a vote, I'd be inclined to vote for the appendage. A real king doesn't carry around. Well, I guess we're going to have to give it credit for a metaphor. At least it's more than symbolism, because you would assume, surely it's been pointed out, that a king, if he suddenly rolled through the village or came through a foreign land, he popped in to get a cold pop in a 7-Eleven, you would assume he's not going to pull up his robe and reach in his pocket, even if he had a pocket. I mean, there's going to be somebody there. He's not going to worry about carrying around quarters or money. There's going to be somebody there going to pay for it. Either that or somebody's got his gold card and just hand it to him. You just know that's true. But then consider, if we're talking about that a real king would be something like at least somewhat out of the ordinary, core of one's intellect. What the hell use would it have for pocket change? Would you like to explain that? All right. What the hell would it have for anything that anybody else ever thought? That's pocket change. Yes, but there must be exceptions. In your case, probably. Yeah. The only thing that counts is originality. The guy told the kid, the mentor. And he even gave him an example. He said, as Aristotle used to always say, anything that's not original is pocket change. Anything that's not original, anything that you have accepted or anything that you reject, that anybody else has thought, no matter what it is, religious, political, economic, It's pocket change. If you knew how to think, you wouldn't have anything to do with it. But would you, back to the metaphorical part, not the symbolic, what if you were, in some way, suddenly king, prime minister, president of the United States, and suddenly you're somebody? Or if you don't like that, how about whatever your field of interest is, that you are now have the #1 record on the fill-in, country, classical, heavy metal chart, that now you're somebody. Wouldn't you hate to be caught somewhere trying to fish around your pocket, trying to come up with, who's got 2 more cents out of trying to get a Coke here, and you're digging around for money? Think about it. You're a king, either literally or figuratively. You are now royalty in the sense of fame, the center of attention somewhere. You've blown it. You're going to have to go somewhere else if you end up fishing around for, somebody got a quarter? Having to apologize to people, I left my billfold at home. That's it. You're finished. Anybody that will accept, and it doesn't matter what, is the point I think Kyroot keeps trying to drive home. It's real easy for somebody to jump in and say, well, you're right. That'd be like the guy at the service station if you ask, well, do you believe there's some kind of struggle between the stupid people in the world, the dumb coughs, and then us intelligent people? And everybody's going to say, well, yeah, there is. Sure there is. There's no doubt about it. That is still pocket change. Because if you believe that there is some sort of struggle going on, if you say, well, and it doesn't matter what you pick out, well, the idea is currently, the political currency of wherever I'm living at whatever time is absolutely on the money. Or else you say, I dismiss it out of hand, or not just out of hand, I can, intellectually, I can dissect what the powers that are in control now, what they purport to be the proper course of action, I can logically, reasonably take it apart. It's the same thing. Just like you're playing now with pocket change in somebody else's pocket, which to men I would suggest is beyond the point of being cheap. Now you're getting kind of, you're asking for trouble. It's all pocket change. It is not fit, to wrap up the metaphor, it is not a fit hobby for royalty. Of course, we're just talking metaphorical and in secret, but if you can think, everything else, unless you thought about it in some way, is pocket change. And if I really wanted to push it, now that I think about it, Kyroot didn't ask me, but instead of talking about pocket change, it suddenly strikes me it could be worse. You got your hand in your pocket playing with little balls of lint. If you see importance in that you don't even have pocket change. Maybe you're staying around like this saying, well, I don't know. Let me see. How much is it? 35 cents? Well, I don't know. Maybe I got a quarter. And you're doing all that, which is bad enough. But it could be that you're just faking everybody out. They can't see your hand in your pocket. And all you got down there is a bunch of cheap lint. What do I mean cheap lint? It's free. It's free lint. I can't believe anybody paid for lint. I don't care how much it costs. Anyway, check with us later because you can get it free. And at the bottom of my verbal conversation, we'll do our own Kyroots, a man says, wait a minute, that's what I paid for my ideas. Yeah, but people who are really sharp wouldn't fall for that kind of crap. They'd say, that's not true. I spent good money going to the University of Nebraska. Well, my parents did, and my first 2 wives. But at any rate, there was a gross outlay of well over $15,000 for my education. So don't tell me I got it free. Well, at least we leave making them sound like they had the last word. Then we got to point out some of you just got through admitting there are people who pay for lint. So to tell me that, wait a minute, I paid thousands of dollars for an education at a state-supported university or a well-known place of higher education, then you're still up with the fact that you people just admitted there are those who will pay for, believe it or not, lint. And Kyroots said whenever he'd think about it, he'd get sad. This one man. Whenever he'd think about it, he'd get sad. And you heard it right the first time. He doesn't say what. He just, Kyroots said, whenever this one guy would think about it, he'd get sad. Shortly right after that, he'd get stupid. I meant to say, of course, get more stupid. There's a lot more to it, but I'm going to add, I'm just going to stick in my own. Catch the inference. Catch a train. Oh, all right, I'll read the rest. But remember where we were. That there's this one guy that whenever he'd think about it, whenever he'd think about it, that's what it says, he'd get sad. And shortly after that, he'd get stupid. What I meant to say was he would, of course, get more stupid. Then about 8 or 10 spaces down, I'd estimate, maybe 12. A woman and man team collectively inquire as follows. If normal human emotions are not natural and normal, then why do we have them? And Kyroots says, I'm not totally convinced that that was a question. But on to other matters, Kyroots says. There's this one guy who says that to me, human institutions are just about like two real stupid guys getting together, and then the whole thing just got out of hand. And then, even still, Kyroots says, but then on to not only other matters, but more important other matters. And the concluding line is, well, you can see it for yourself. No, okay. If a herd of ducks is not more intelligent than a mallard alone, then we's all done for. Seems like I know one of those where Kyroot giveth and Kyroot taketh away, and then Kyroot giveth and Kyroot taketh away. Of course, I know I can speak for ordinary viewers, having been one once myself, back when I was in the University of Nebraska. Kyroots giveth, and then it's apparently Kyroots taketh away, and Kyroots giveth, and then like suddenly Kyroots taketh away, and ordinary viewers finally reach the point of thinking, who gives a damn? Folks, we got, here it goes, 50 seconds. And Kyroots said, the monarch of one kingdom announced, the primary cause of grief and strife among our people comes from that stuff in their cells. And Kyroots points out that he did not bother to label this one a fairy tale because he knew that you guys, to see what was going on. All right, just a few minutes. I know that's one of the tricky ones, sort of, if you were listening. That Kyroots says that he didn't label a fairy tale because he knew that you guys knew what was going on, that you caught on. Then, if you were, you could go, well, if you were a guy, you could say, well, he didn't label a fairy tale because it's not true, is what he means. Tut, tut. You understand? Kyroots saying, I didn't label a fairy tale because I knew that you'd catch on. And you could say, yeah, I catch on that what the king says is not true. See, you blew it. He didn't label a fairy tale because the king couldn't say that. It's not that what he said wasn't true. That all the strife here, that if you had a king that was a real king, that somebody knew what was going on in the goof fields, and that kind of Euro kingdom would look out and say, well, all the problems come about, and you would expect, of course, something, psychological problems, lack of respect for the community, lack of respect for our culture, lack of respect for their king, just all sorts of things. But this king said, the basis of all of it, I just said strife and grief. Everything, all the problems of the kingdom are caused by one thing, all that stuff in their cells. The fairy tale part is that a king couldn't say that, not an ordinary king. Good night.